I thought you were going to post it on Discord. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're on. It's us
We're on. Oh
doing our
God,
thing.
it's us.
The same
We're
thing.
here.
Mm,
The thing we do every week.
mm.
Why is I've updated my browser and everything's cooked. Literally updated my browser and everything's cooked. I don't know why it broke everything, but it's broken everything.
Mm.
I'm just gonna go and check. Just gonna go and check that it's working live at my end, so I can hear myself. Can I hear myself? Yes, it's working. It's
Yeah, we
working.
can hear you.
Okay,
I've
cool.
got the little levels on.
Um,
In
yeah,
fact,
levels are right.
can I
Fucking,
can I share a screen? I don't know.
you should be
Can I?
able to just hit share screen. It'll probably go back and forward to internet, but no. Um,
Uh,
I haven't got much to bring this week. I was thinking about things. Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna add in here. Oh, yeah, I can jump in there and watch that.
na, 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 na.
You've set up the. Oh yeah, I can see the OBS now. That's wonderful.
So you can see all the little levels and stuff.
I can see all the levels and stuff. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. That's very awesome. I gotta write something in there. Hang on. I gotta remember.
Oh, that's fun.
What have you found out?
I think it's changed it a bit.
I have a correction for last week because I forgot to mention something when I was talking. Can I issue my correction now?
Oh, hold on. Is it still doing its thing? There we go. Yeah. Sorry, I thought I'd
Is it
turn
still
it off because
working?
it was chewing resources like a motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm not
There you go.
surprised.
It's only running on a T440p.
Yeah, it's not going
For like
everywhere all at
16
once.
gig of RAM. I'm not running it on the Beast, although I probably should because the Beast is just sitting there, not doing anything a lot of the
Yeah,
time. And
yeah.
having a considerable amount more poke would probably be good. So yeah, so
Yeah, I mean,
correction.
I'm only running on mine on a P53, so it's not that much. It's a good one, but it's not the best either.
Mm,
My correction for last week. Sorry for everyone who apologized for last week. I forgot to mention when I went on my rabbit hole of farming the left.
mm.
I meant to mention the interesting video that I had found about this topic. It's just called Arming Left. I can't think what the channel name is.
All right.
The thingo in the blah blah blah. If you search on YouTube Arming Left, it comes up as the first. It comes up as the first thingo, and
Mm,
it was dealing with the guys, the peoples from guys in the Australian peoples, otherwise in the this is an Australian vernacular for you,
mm.
from uh the what are they called? It's not John Brown group. That's the other ones. What are the people who do the pistol training in the US called Zach? They
The
have
Socialist
the
Rifle
SRA,
Association. Yeah.
Socialist Rifle Association. So I was talking about Socialist Rifle Association. So that was I forgot to mention last week when I listened back. I was checking the recording things were all right, and I was doing the making sure all my notes were right, and I realized that I went on my whole little spiel and I forgot to mention the video
Mm,
that had referenced this thing, and I'm like, no, that was the reference. So if you're in the US, then Arming Left, worth going and watching, worth going and checking out the SRA. I don't think anything exists in a similar vein anywhere else in the world that I am aware of
mm,
in the Western world. Let's say it's a stupid name because I'm not in the fucking Western Hemisphere.
mm.
Um, yeah, I hate saying the West because it's not in the West, and I can't think of another way of saying it. It's
Yeah.
good. Um, Yeah, and the other one that then comes out of that was also the fact that stopthebleed.org exists and they do training,
Mm.
um, and that is a good thing. And everyone should go and do their Stop the Bleed and do their first aid certificates and da da da. So there's the point to start with
Mm.
is go and do your first aid certificate. As shit
Okay.
as it will probably be through whatever organisation you do it through, go and do your initial your initial Stop the Bleed course or your initial Stop the Bleed deals with life-threatening problems, and
Mm.
it's much. I think the training is a bit better than what the average training is for most other first aid courses, because most first aid courses now don't deal with anything apart from how do you call the ambulance, which
Mm.
is not a solution,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. But that is still there. So yeah. If you can go do stop bleed. Otherwise, first aid course.
Mm.
Otherwise, just keep doing bits and pieces and go from there.
Nice.
That was my correction and my first thing for this week. Zach, what did you
Well,
correct or otherwise bring to the table?
so on your recommendation, I watched. Is it God's Little Helpers?
God's Little Helpers, yes.
I like the first series. I watched all of that. That's very good. Very
Yep.
much like Chaos with Jeff Goldblum in it.
Yep. Is
So
chaos spelled with K-A-O-S, or is it
yeah,
chaos as in normal spelling?
no,
Yeah,
KAOS.
what it was.
So yeah, those are
Is that
two
a
things to
reference to a
watch.
god? Is chaos spelled that way a reference to a Greek god, or is that have I got
I
that
don't
wrong?
think so.
Hmm. Let's go.
So that I rewatched The Punisher, the TV
The
series.
Punisher. Yep.
That's worth a watch. The new Daredevil TV series is out,
Jesus, you
and
give me them all in one go, Daredevil.
yeah, but I'm just going sort of like this is the TV I binged watched as a result of my
Yep.
entertaining levels of medication at the moment. So yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and watched a lot of news. Parkrose Permaculture was doing some scary, interesting stuff. I think things are
Yep.
going a bit interesting in her part of the world, but we've mentioned them
Yep.
before. But I think the biggest thing I've been
Yeah.
playing with so far is DeepSeek.
Yep. You've been playing more with the R1 model.
Yeah, that
Yep.
is really, really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because in about 5 GB, so a 10-minute
Mm-hmm.
download if you've got really quick internet, it knows a lot. It knows a scary amount
Yep.
of condensed data. And so it knows about politics, law, medicine, science, history, and literature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's in the offline model, which is 3 lines of code to install and run. One of the lines is to launch the DeepSeek.
Yep. Yep.
So you literally
Yep.
have to copy and paste 2 lines of text and then run
Yep.
DeepSeek.
And then start the model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got a few other projects. There's been quite a few people writing sort of plugins for DeepSeek. So that's
Have you, out of interest, have you seen one that plugs into? Have you seen one that plugs it back into the internet, and then you can access things like the Wolfram Mathematica? Have they done that yet, or is that not a thing? Because
yes.
that was the only bit of the only impressive bit that I ever thought was interesting out of the original release of 3.5 and then 4
Mm.
for
ChatGPT.
OpenAI, which
Yeah.
is not ChatGPT,
Mm.
was when the guys at Wolfram basically took ChatGPT and they said, "Oh, we'll just create a thing so it goes and looks up the information. Like, if you ask a mathematical question, it goes and looks up on Wolfram and then reports back the answer to you from Wolfram, which like anyone could do. It's just a fucking, it's literally using a
Well,
search engine as a
yeah.
grep function on the fucking internet. It's not hard.
Mm.
But it's very, very interesting that they did that. That was the only thing that ever impressed me about OpenAI's development was the connection
Yeah.
between real documented stuff that humans had done, and then making that stuff more readable, more understandable through the AI structure type thing,
Yeah.
the LLM structure. So I'm glad they've done that. Good job then.
So I had some very interesting times with that. I tried to ramp up and finesse it so it was working a bit better, but
Yep.
kind of ran out of time today for the add-ins and found a few issues with a couple of my computers. So you will need at least 8 GB of RAM to run DeepSeek. That's its lower limit.
Yep.
Because I tried to put it on my MacBook Air, which has only got 4 GB, because I thought that'd be a hoot, but it wouldn't
Yep.
work.
And it wouldn't play. Pardon me.
So yeah. So I had a few file file structure problems with the machine I was running
Yep.
it on. But I was
Yep.
I was idly running it on the first machine that I had to hand, which is a P50S with 16 gig of
Yep.
RAM, and it runs about human speed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
No, they've managed to get it to an interesting spot, I think, with that one model, because they've made it that much easier to, as you say, like install and make it run to make it more useful.
And because it's open source, you're allowed to use it without paying large amounts of money in a commercial setting as well.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to
they've
plug
taken away
in a few
the
different
bullshit.
bits to it. One is to build a graphical user interface so it's marginally easier to run. The
Mhm,
next is
mhm.
popping Wikipedia onto it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the one after that is getting it to do voice.
Yep.
And then we're in some interesting territory.
Yeah.
Because it will be pretty smart. It will be like 120 gigs worth of information.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, watch this space
Hmm.
on DeepSeek. It is interesting to just have it.
Yeah, just fiddle. Yeah.
You just have it. You know, it's about as
Yep.
smart
Yep.
as a Pears Cyclopedia search engine type thing.
Yep. Yep.
So, the caveat is its knowledge is only updated to about the end of 2023. So
Yeah.
it's not massively up to date.
No.
But I would say the great thing about it is it shows you its thought process.
Yeah. So you can see how you can see and then correct what it's done.
Yeah. So that is a very useful, rather than just punching in a question to ChatGPT
Yep.
or the mobile versions of it, because you can get it on your phone to play with it, but that's cloud linked.
Yep. Yeah.
The interesting thing is
Yep.
how much offline information and how useful could you make it?
Yeah.
Is it capable of reading a book, for instance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could I add the
you
PDFs
were
of the
able to.
permaculture thing?
Yeah. You were able to get. You had to fight because of the way that OpenAI structured it. It was bullshit how they structured it. You were able to fight to get OpenAI or through whatever methodology worked. You could get it to read articles to do that. So it should be like reasonably easy to make it happen type thing. Here comes the black cat.
Well, maybe not.
Mine's asleep over there. She's ignoring me today. She had a cuddle this morning. She fucked off. She hasn't reappeared.
I could go a whole day without seeing my cat, but the second I sit down to record, she wants to be on my lap.
Yeah, of course. Not stupid. Not stupid at all. All right then. Positive news or good news or bad news? I'm going to go with the first one I had written down, which is from last week that I didn't get to talk about.
Yeah.
So last week there was a really, really interesting report back from Peter Hayes. It's entitled Lucy Letby and the Revival of the Witch Hunt. For those who haven't followed Lucy Letby case, it is one of the greatest travesties of modern day British legal theory ever. But I think this was a really, really good. I think this video gave a lot of good background, but also gave it was a really interesting take on what the fuck they were talking about and how the misogynistic undertones of what the fuck was going on within that department, within the CPS, within like what was happening type thing. I thought the video gave a very good explainer of what's going on. But I've been fascinated by the Lucy Letby case since it started. And if you want another good background, there's a really, really good article which I think is open to free access on the Wall Street Journal. I want to say, I think I've got that right. Which talks about the background of like how it was just a complete failure of assessing what the fuck had happened type thing. And it is, to me, it's yet another one of those proofs of just how fucked everything can get type thing in terms of when they want to throw you in jail for something or other, they will just find an excuse to throw you in jail, which I've known from being a child. And I think that's the most fucked thing ever, because like the number of people who in America who are thrown in fucking jail for no fucking reason, and then like decades later, when this person's been on fucking like, death row or whatever type thing, they finally get them free. Or the number of people who are like, and it's utter fucking bullshit. Let alone anything else about the prison environment, let alone anything else about where you would stand on what the fuck should happen to prisoners' rights or the death penalty or anything else type thing. Just the fact that they can essentially just arrest you and throw you in jail with no fucking proof, and you have no regress for the fact that you didn't get represented by a lawyer that was competent or able whatsoever. Is utter fucking bullshit. Let alone any of those compounding factors. Whatever those compounding factors are type thing within the world, you can think up thousands of them type thing. But yeah, I think in terms of like, it just struck me that it was a really, really good hour-long video type thing, talking about the specifics of what was going on, but also then relating it back to historical fact and what went on with the witches. I don't know if I've told this story before. I know Zach's heard it before. I didn't realize that the Salem witch trial events had not just happened, like the Salem witch trial event happened in Salem, in Massachusetts, Salem. And I didn't realize that a similar thing had happened in the UK. I had no fucking clue when I first moved to the UK, because the breakdown of education in Australia basically goes, we have like half a year of like medieval history, which doesn't cover a great deal. and then we go into Australian history, and we basically deal with Australian history the rest of the time through. When by Australian history, I'm talking post-colonialisation of Australia, past 1788. That's all we talk about in Australian history, because we talk about Australian history and nothing else. So Australian history courses in school were shit. And I read subsequently, I read a lot of European history about, like, in the modern sense of European history, so what conflicts and bits and pieces going on after I left school, but I'd never read history earlier than that type of thing out of school, and had no fucking reason to. I remember going to visit Canterbury. A friend, I ended up living down there or working down there, and I ended up staying down there all the time type thing. I remember walking through on a summer's night, vividly walking through Canterbury, and you go through the main castle gate wall, where the outside wall of the castle, the outside wall of the town is, or the city is type thing, and you walk in, and there's a river that goes through Canterbury, and it's an enclosed enclosed river space now, enclosed stream type thing now. I'm walking down, and there's always people standing on the side of this fucking little bridge, looking down at these lights that are like shining over something or other. And I turned around unknowingly, and in my very loud autistic fucking Australian I've been drinking voice, back in my 20s, turn and say, "Why the fuck is there a seesaw in the middle of the fucking water?" I just had no fucking clue like what the fuck I just said. That like would ever fucking insult anyone. Of course, these are dunking stools, and dunking stools were used to torture women, right? And I just dug up a fast up thing. And my friend who I was with, very lovingly went, "Kim, shut the fuck up now," and dragged me away before I got in a fucking fist fight with someone, because I didn't know I didn't realize that shit that had occurred in the US also occurred in the UK. But I think this video gives a really, really good sort of like correlation between all these bits and pieces. Yeah. The fact that the last witch was arrested, I want to say the last person who was locked up for witchcraft in the UK was 1963. She was either locked up or released. It was 1963. Scottish lady, can't remember her name, but it's worth fucking checking out the history of what the fuck was going on.
It's
and
still
it's utter
a
fucking
capital
bullshit.
offence in some countries in Africa.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, I'm sorry, but yeah. Some people don't get to come to the UN table and have a conversation because they refuse to grow the fuck up, and like this is the shit that you get to grow up about type thing, you know. But yeah, so that was just an interesting one that I found this week, and I think as with you, I've watched a shit ton of TV because my small person has been here. Yeah, I think one we've been watching is we're watching a lot of quiz shows. I don't know why we're watching a lot of quiz shows. But also the one we've been watching is that I've been really enjoying, let's say, is we've been watching Star Trek Lower Decks. Because I started watching it with a small person ages ago, a couple of years ago now, when I think the first couple of seasons are out. But she's come back and she's like, "Well, watch Lower Decks," and then it's just entertaining to watch someone. To her, to me, as in Voyager was my first Star Trek. To her, Lower Decks is her first Star Trek. And now she's finally got to where, halfway through season 5, the last season. And she's actually intrigued by what's going on in the politics of what's happening type thing, and how all these characters keep coming around in bits and pieces, and what's going on type thing, and how the whole storytelling within Star Trek works. Because there is something to the storytelling that is, that is interesting within Star Trek, which is kind of fun.
Well, usually there's an A plot and a B plot in a Star Trek episode.
Not only that, but there's always like the time or the alternate parallel dimension, and then what's happening because of it type thing. So this week was the three female characters off the bridge, getting stuck on a planet with the purple-headed with Lieutenant Commander Data coming from the purple. Like the purple ship, the purple Enterprise, come through a fucking rift in space type thing, a rift in parallel space, and then they picked up Data's head, and they would, and then it was time dilation. So there's the whole time dilation on the planet type thing, and the male characters are stuck on the Cerritos, trying to get them back, but the three female characters get stuck with Data, going through the avenues of what's going on type thing for 10 months through the course of this program type thing. And it's the MacGuffin of the TV show is this is the thing and how we tell the story and da. But it's always with Star Trek the interesting MacGuffin of what's going on type stuff. But yeah, so I wait with bated breath to be able to sit down and watch more Star Trek with my small person, because
have you watched the original animated series?
No.
Okay, so there was the original series like Kirk, Spock, McCoy.
I've seen random bits of it on YouTube, but I've never actually sat down and sort of watched it as a thing.
It's pretty psychedelic.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, it's 1960s and everyone was on fucking acid, weren't they?
Yeah. So
it was like LSD and make cartoons.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, if you're very bored, the Star Trek animated series is worth a watch.
Yep.
Just for
Yep. Yep.
a change of pace. Yeah, you made
Yep.
me feel old then when you say Voyager was my first Star Trek, and I'm like, shit.
Well, Voyager was. That was the one that Voyager was the Star Trek that came out in the 90s.
Mm.
Exactly but in exactly the right time, because that was like, the 90s were, to give everyone who's fucking younger than us, I don't think anyone who's younger than us listening, is VHS tapes were how it was, like, how it was sent around the world beyond being on TV. It wasn't put on TV in Australia. It was never shown on TV in Australia.
That's weird.
Yeah. Like, I think the original series was on TV late at night, like on fucking, like, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, but like when I had a fucking job, so there was no way I was going to stay up and watch it type thing. It was never going to fucking happen. It may well have been on TV in the 60s, but I'm talking about like it being replayed. I think it was replayed at like midnight or 2 a.m. or whatever type thing. But I was like, I'm talking like late 90s. But I distinctly remember going to like the VHS rental place, which was called Civic Video. That was our local one, was called Civic Video. We're in the inner West Sydney. And then Voyager came out. Most of my mates had like watched like Deep Space Nine, or they watched like TNG type thing, but I hadn't watched them because I was that, like, my mates, these mates were like, I'm talking two mates are like, they're 5 years older than me type thing, so they caught it sort of 5 years earlier. I hadn't seen any of that stuff. But then when Voyager came out, we ended up sitting down and watching the first movie length started. I think Voyager starts with a double episode, but it might be triple episode. Yeah. Starts with a movie length episode, and like the whole MacGuffin of the beginning fired off into the Delta Quadrant, Delta Gamma Quadrant, I can't remember which it is, Delta Quadrant. Yeah. Was just like, and then I started watching it, and then because the tapes came out, like, they had all the tapes at the fucking VHS place, and it was, it's like, you get four fucking VHS tapes. It was $1 extra to get another one type thing. So I get down and hire the next one every time I went in type thing, because I used to be a regular, obviously watched films when I was a kid, or a teenager type thing. That was mainly, I didn't have a TV, but I did have a TV, but I only watched fucking VHS tapes. So it was like, that was how I sort of got into it. So that was there you go. That's why Voyager was, and still to my, like, I still reference everything else off of. I thought like, obviously all Star Trek has naff episodes or bits of fucking thing that go right, whatever type thing, and they're always fucking with it somehow type thing. Like, don't get me wrong, Voyager is not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But to me, everything else gets assessed versus how do I feel about Janeway being a captain? And to me, Janeway is the captain, right? And then, to me, that was an important step in what was going on, and there were all these important characters type thing, and everyone else lining up behind Janeway and what her mission was to get everyone home and get everyone safe type thing, which is a very different rigid story. The things they do otherwise are quite similar to what happens otherwise in Star Trek, but the thing that she does, like the things that portrayal of a character trying to get home type thing, trying to get trying to get everyone safely home type thing, and then picking up other people on the way and doing whatever type thing, that was very novel from what I realize now in terms of Star Trek's story type thing. It's been redone again subsequently, but that was not, we're boldly adventuring around and doing stuff, bits and pieces, and things are going wrong. It's like we're trying to get home. We've got this overarching, the overarching mission is, I've got to get these people safely home. It's going to take me 75 years, and we don't want to fucking do that.
Well, I think Voyager's advantage is it had a narrative storyline for the whole series.
Yeah.
The weird thing that they did in the jarring thing, the thing that always bothered me in original Star Trek and The Next Generation, and to a certain extent the original animated series as well, is that they do this, it's 5-year mission to seek out new life and all that bollocks. Yeah. But they never really do. The vast majority of Next Gen and the original series is doing trucking runs between star bases.
Yeah, is fixing the MacGuffin of the week.
In an actual, you're within what you already know. They're tootling about inside Federation space for 99% of it. Very rarely do they go outside Federation space. Star Trek does it once in season 3 or season 2 when they first encounter the Borg. Yeah, they're outside Federation space.
And they get both votes.
And you could possibly include the Mirror Universe episodes. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's they're not really exploring strange new worlds all that often.
I mean, strange things happen to them all the time, but those are the highlight episodes.
The original series does it a lot more, where they encounter new shit. But a lot of the time, they're encountering new stuff whilst they're going to somewhere where they're already humans.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The animated series advantage is it has a lot more non-human characters that aren't people with bizarre stuff on their foreheads.
Yeah, and that's why. So this is why, right? I enjoy the stories of Lower Decks because to me, it's I mean, as it's written, is what is everyone else on the ship doing type thing. And they did it. There's an episode in season 5 where they're talking about like what the bridge crew are up to and what the bridge crew are doing, and then they kind of ignore the Lower Decks for the season for that episode. The Lower Decks guys wander off to go and solve some fucking problems and do some shit, and then it just follows the captain and the bridge crew around what they're doing in a day type thing, and then how their work works. And you see, conversely, that like in every other story, it's like what does Janeway do, or what does Commander Sisko do, or whatever, and you're following around the important people in the story. But in the case of Lower Decks, the important people are the maintenance crew, the ensigns who then become sub lieutenants or under lieutenants in the story. But to me, that's why I think it's well written.
Yeah, I mean, there's a dramatic requirement for the bridge crew to go down onto the planet.
Yeah,
because they're the main characters. Everybody knows who they are.
Yeah, because they're the main characters, and that's who. And number 2 always goes down and does
Well, I mean, that was a new innovation for Next Gen, where they basically said it's going to be very rare for Captain Picard to go down onto a planet. That's why you've got Will Riker.
Yeah,
but you still wouldn't send the executive officer and the captain to an unknown location.
To an unknown fucking place, because then
an ensign and some ordinary spods. And I've always wanted to see even Lower Decks is still people on the officer candidacy track.
Yeah.
Right? They're still
well, they're all ensigns when they start. They're all ensigns when they start, and then they're all off to
not everybody
do whatever.
In Star Trek is an ensign or above.
No.
When you join, you can join Star Trek as crew. You can just be a bod. So you could join Starfleet and you just be, a chef.
Yeah.
Or a maintenance bod.
Yeah.
And
so then what's the story of those people?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Just bods.
And there's always more Star Trek to make. And this is the to me it has to keep evolving and keep doing its thing type thing.
But that's where the Orville wins out, because it's not the best of the best. It's not the best of everyone else in space. I love all the elevator conversations in the Orville where they're going, "Oh yeah, can we have drinks on the bridge?"
Yeah.
And there's a whole HR discussion, like HR problems when some of the alien species can't wear a uniform because they're too massive or lumpy or
Yeah, everything else. Yeah.
So. That's what I like about the Orville. You see more ordinary people.
Yep.
But this whole best of the best thing is kind of...
Yeah.
I like that about Enterprise, where they had the Space Marines after a while. Had the Makos. They were pretty cool. And you had ordinary bods in there. But you don't see that many ordinary bods in Star Trek. It's always officers and stuff.
It's always officers.
You're an officer or you're a red shirt,
Yeah. Well, and if you're a red shirt, you're always dying. The death of the week is always a red shirt, isn't it? Type thing. Yeah.
But in things like Next Gen and Voyager, if you were a spod, just an ordinary dude, and you can replace the circuitry things really well, so that the engineering officers don't have to do it. Because chief engineer isn't an officer rank.
No.
It's a non-com rank, which they really dick about with in Star Trek, because Geordie LaForge is a lieutenant.
Yeah.
So that's where I think actually doing a Starship Troopers TV show or a Forever War TV show would be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know you'd ever please... I don't know as you would ever please anyone by trying to make Starship Troopers happen.
It's at that point where I disagree with Gary in that I don't think I could find 100 people that wanted to make Starship Troopers.
I think you could find
Not that
100
would
people that
actually
wanted to
want
make.
to physically get down in
I,
the
I think
trenches and make it.
no, no.
Like,
I think you could
film
find
it.
100 people around the world. They
Yeah.
probably all couldn't get together at the same time. That's the issue. But I also think that like you would never be able to. So post Verhoeven making, the classic, let's not all behave like fucking America in like, let's not behave like Paul Verhoeven's whole argument is America is becoming more and more and more fascistic. Let's not do that. This is, here is the really obvious signposting of what America is doing.
Yeah, but
And we're only seeing that become. And we're only seeing that 20 years later. We're only seeing that become worse and worse and worse. No one has learned that Paul Verhoeven was pointing fun at America and saying, "Don't go down this fucking, don't go down this fucking line."
I think people that have studied film know that it was a deliberate jibe.
Yeah, I'm talking about everyone else
who's not watched it generally didn't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, Star
Trek. I do think that you're going somewhere right when you're talking about the Forever War, because the Forever War the whole way through is like absolute fucking boredom. Like the principal events that happen is like it's all hurry up and wait, right? And once you've hurried up and waited, then there's like this blip of like violence, and it's absolute abhorrent, like tremoring fucking violence in the book, the Forever War type thing.
Yeah.
And I think you would be hard sold to get it put onto commercial distribution somewhere type thing. But do I think that story should be told in some form? Yes. And I think it's short enough, and I think it's documented enough. And also the MacGuffin of the whole like time dilation thing works, because you can basically say you go from like right now and it's it's just okay right now, and it's easy enough to film, and then you go forward into the future one generation, and then you're going into a city looking at things. I'm sorry for spoilers for everyone who's not fucking read the book. Fucking read the fucking book. You should have read the book already. I told you fucking years ago. But then you go, it's a MacGuffin. The MacGuffin works because you come back, you look around a dirty city and go, it's all fucked. His mother, Mary Jane's partner's name, fucking
Mandala.
Mandala's mother dies, and then Mandala fucks off to visit Mary Jane, and then like ends up on a farm, and then more violence happens, and then they end up back on the fucking there's violence away. They go on the mission. There's training. They go on the mission. There's violence. They come back. They go fuck this. They come back. It is essentially violence, and then there's violence upon violence. And they end up back in the military system, and then they fuck off and sort of like solve. Like it's quite easily positioned into making a film type thing. You just got to get someone who can make a fucking film, and we're going back now, but that's my argument. I don't think people can make. You'd almost be better off making it with on no budget type thing,
Well, on those lines, the Axanar project, which is another Star Trek project, but a fan-based one that was crowdsourced, is putting something heavy duty out in the next couple of months, like April time.
Yeah.
So they crowdsourced a new Star Trek series / movie years and years ago, about 10 years ago. And Paramount tried to sue them out of existence. Failed.
Yeah.
And this is how awesome they're doing it. I mean, they are filming on quite nice cameras, and they are editing it and compositing it now on Mac Studio PCs.
Yeah, which is
okay. But they bought available second-hand Mac Studio PCs to do the composition. But now the composition tools, they're using Blender to create photorealistic 3D environments and to position the camera at the same distance from the film footage as the Blender camera is. So they're not. It's not CG now. It's proper composition and three-dimensional rendering. So they said, as soon as we found out we could do that for cheap, we went back and recomposited and reshot a lot of stuff, because the technology to a prosumer level had jumped forward so much. And interestingly, along that thing, a new development recently is a digital tape that you can put in old DV cameras.
Mm.
So there are DV cameras with quite good CCD systems.
Oh yeah, lovely fucking CCDs, and they're iconic looking.
But they were recording to a tape which was fucking up the resolution.
Yeah.
So they've now got digital packages that can be literally inserted in. So it's the whole digital package. So the and
it's going straight out of the CCD into a digital packet, into digital memory type thing. You're not fucking around with putting on a tape.
So it now might be worth buying one of those nice Canon, those white Canon cameras with the big
white Canons.
lenses.
Yeah, I don't remember the model designation, but I do remember wanting one when they first came out and going, this is what the footage that came out of them was very, very interesting. Yeah, I don't think that is it 1080p though, or is it? Yeah.
But that's all it is. So it would be a fascinating thing to have as a camera, because those old Canons can be quite cheap and still functional. I don't know how much the little digital package that you put in the...
it's probably doubling the cost of the fucking camera is the problem.
Oh, probably, but it would give you some interesting things to do.
For sure.
So Axanar's coming out. And if you want to see what it might be like, Prelude to Axanar on YouTube. It's 20 minutes long, but it's shot in the format of a documentary about the Klingon War. So Axanar takes place during the Klingon War that Star Trek, the original series, references. You know, in the original series, they have fought the Klingons. And Axanar, they're in the midst of fighting the Klingons. So it is a prequel to the original series. So there's a lot. There's some interesting Star Trek stuff sloshing around.
Stuff happening. Yeah. Did you have anything else you want to bring to the conversation after our weekly discussion of Star Trek and how good it is?
Yeah. Sorry. We do go on about Star Trek, but it is a
it's fucking good though, isn't it?
Zeitgeist barometer.
Yeah.
And I did try watching Prodigy, but I just couldn't get on with it. Have I watched anything that wasn't politics?
Yeah. Funnily enough, that was one of the things on my list was to talk about was with all of the bullshit going on. So it's not really politics. It's not like I can't point to a source for it type of thing. Well, I can, but I can point to many sources for it type of thing. I think there's something important about getting your news from a reputable source, let's say. There's something in that argument about, like, you know, not just blindly flicking on the TV type thing, as you know, most of our generation don't, and then subsequently no one is doing type thing. But there's certainly something about choosing where you're getting that information from and highlighting the importance of trusted sources and knowing what's going on. And I think, like, you know, everyone and their dog now makes a podcast, so it's not like you can't, like, put on a podcast at two times speed, talking about the politics of what's going on in the week type thing, and then go around and vacuum the house with your headphones on type thing. There's certainly just as much news cycle not being made by, you know, mainstream broadsheet, you know, information sources type thing. But then lots of people who report for mainline broadsheet productions are also making their own like podcasts and bits and pieces. So there's all that sort of stuff going on in bits and pieces. But yeah, something in there about trusted news sources. I don't know what. Yeah,
I don't think there is anything 100% trustworthy.
No, well, everything's always sold. Everything's always trying to tell you their on brand messaging about the thing that has happened. So it's never. We were trying to get to this. I was trying to talk to someone about this in the week at the university, and it was like trying to make them explain that there's no such thing as the truth. The truth doesn't exist. There is, like, it's Plato's cave analogy is the thing. Is like we're all looking at the same thing happening, and then we're all assessing what's going on with our assessment of what's happening because of the way we're brought up, our sociological, economic, blah 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 blah, everything, you know, miasma of shit around it type thing. So that all bears the brunt of like what then is occurring to us, and then what do we choose to pass on, or what do we choose to talk about type thing. But you know, you just have to go into it. You have to go into it realizing that you're looking at it the wrong way. You know, there's something to be said about Sate Kennedy talking about, you know, about in season 1 of Patrolling, talking about the fact of listening to the enemy and then trying to look at how and why they're talking about what they're talking about type thing. And breaking down their argument and saying their argument doesn't follow because of this, or their argument, or here is the thing they're attacking my side for, and then how do we dispute those facts? And you don't have to do it all the time. It's not like but you have to be aware of the assessment of to a group of people, the thing that I consider to be normal, sane, the right thing to do is wrong in some way, and then how do I dispute the fact that this thing to them is not normal? And most oftenly, to me, it comes down to this person has lost compassion, or they have not been given any compassion within their life, because that is the reason why they're broken. So the thing they're fundamentally missing is compassion, and that's what the biggest fucking that's what the big fucking deal is. Something, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, something about trusted news sources. I don't know, yeah, read from a variety of sources and go from there.
Well, this is Jesse Wells. And I would say that's a piece of media, because you were talking about news. So he's a topical folk singer.
Yeah.
That kind of like a minstrel, really.
Yeah.
In the Middle Ages sense of the word, like he's basically recording all these songs that are about what's going down in America. So have a look at him at Wells Music. WELLES music, and you can check out what he's doing. But to quote Babylon 5, which I don't think we've mentioned yet, there's a bit where the Minbari saying the truth is a three-edged sword, your side, my side, and the truth.
Yep. No, Matilda's very confused because I've been putting together my bookshelves, and then so shit's everywhere still. I still haven't got fucking organised. I'm trying to do uni and deal with the small person and fucking clean up my house and get everything sorted. One bookshelf's put together, one other bookshelf's put together. There's still more shit to put away type thing. The house will never be sorted. But yeah, there's some DVDs like down there in front of the cupboard, because I've like pulled all the DVDs that were on the shelf before I've sorted them out type thing. Gone, the DVDs need to go in a spot with DVDs type thing, as physical media type stuff, with the CDs and bits and pieces, and they're all spread out all over the shop. So I just put them all together. But Matilda's looking, and I found a secondhand copy of Babylon 5, in the charity shop in the book recyclers, 2 towns over type thing. So I picked it up and bought it for a $5 type thing, because it's like I've never seen this. I've never watched it. It's not all of it. It's just the first season. And I was like, I'll buy that for a $5 and just sit down and watch it type thing. And I still haven't sat down and watched it because it's just been busy, and I've been trying to get things done and haven't got sorted something. But the weird thing is because Matilda's like gone and looked at it, right? Tilda's picked it up and gone like, oh, that looks interesting. Like, what's going on with this thing? Da da da. And then she's watched Star Trek in the last month. She's like, is Babylon 5 part of Star Trek? And I'm like, no, but it's very similar, but it's very different, but it's very similar, but it tells it from a different angle. But it's almost Babylon 5 with the Orville and Star Trek are all telling the same truths from that different thing type thing, aren't they? They're all different avenues of looking at the future and where the fuck we turn out type thing.
Yeah.
It's all very. Is it Rashomon that was the famous book from Japan who tells the 3 different avenues?
Yeah.
Yep. If you mention Rashomon, you have to mention Ghost Dog, because Ghost Dog is the best fucking thing ever in terms of a 90s film, right? If you haven't seen Ghost Dog, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Go and watch. Go and read Rashomon. It's a fascinating. The film is also very, very good. Japanese film is very, very good, from the 60s or 70s. I want to say it's in color. Maybe it's in black and white.
Well,
if you look up the iconic version of Rashomon,
Akira Kurosawa's is probably
I can't spell the name. Kurosawa. I think it's got no. Excuse my spelling mistakes in the thing. I don't care. And then Ghost Dog. But yeah, Ghost Dog is just a fascinating. Yep, Ghost Dog is a fascinating film. Done by some. I don't remember who made it, but it's just the storytelling in Ghost Dog is just, it's on point. Violent in parts, but just a fucking cracking old story. Yeah. Yep.
I think it's on YouTube. Yeah.
It would not surprise me. Yep.
Let me just pause that. I'll put that in the chat for anybody who wants to watch it.
what changes this week. If it changes, then go and find it somewhere where you steal your media from, obviously.
Don't think you need
yeah.
to. It's on YouTube.
Yep. What else have I got? I've got an off-topic one. The Sad Bastards Cookbook, which I'm sure we've mentioned before on one of the, not in this sort of block of shows, but I'm sure I've mentioned it before. But it's just it was written by a bunch of people who were dealing with shit and bits and pieces, and it's very much just like one of the funniest little. We'll come back to why this is important later when I talk about the next thing afterwards. But yeah, the Sad Bastard Cookbook, there's a link in the description, obviously, something. It was just written up by a group of people. They ended up getting it published type thing. I wish I had a physical copy of it type thing. But it's, how do you, it's almost like prep cooking in terms of like what's going on, but it's very much a like, how to make food when you just cannot function type thing. And if you're having a bad week or if you're busy type thing, then there's nothing like a bit of a Sad Bastard Cookbook cooking recipe type thing. And everyone I seem to point to it type thing goes, oh, I have those recipes. And everyone I think has those recipes. But then to see them documented in such a way, in such an unjudgmental way, such an obviously poking fun at themselves as the authors and poking fun at the whole critique of the restaurant industry and what's going on type thing, and the whole domestic sciences as a thing, as opposed to just we all have to fucking eat, and sometimes we can just about bear making porridge in the microwave type thing, or just about bear making ramen soup type thing. And all those things can be, extra good, or they can be extra shit. And how does it work type thing. But yeah, the Sad Bastard Cookbook is, well, it's just if nothing else, it's worth a giggly read type thing.
Yeah.
I wish there was more of it. I fear that to make more of it, I would be the one to have to write it, and I'm busy with 500 other projects going on in the background.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have another one there, Zach?
Well, I would say Babylon 5's worth watching.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't mentioned that before.
No.
And something you might want to add in, although it does, whereas Babylon 5 doesn't do this, some things seem to go on for significantly far too long. And Farscape always felt like it had gone on for far too long.
I always enjoyed Farscape because it was, I think it has something to do with being an Australian production. I don't know how, but there's a lot of Australians tied up in it somehow. I don't know how. Yeah.
Interestingly, the two lead characters ended up on Stargate Atlantis.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't seen all of Stargate because to me Stargate did the same thing. They made a film. I watched like the first season of Stargate or whatever type thing. But it was a bit like, to me, Sliders did. Is it Sliders? I think when they go through Sliders did the same thing. It went on for fucking just eons of time. And unlike Star Trek, where I think the MacGuffin makes up for it type thing, because the MacGuffin can change in Star Trek, and they can rework the MacGuffin type thing all the time. That doesn't necessarily hold with Sliders. It doesn't necessarily hold, and conversely, like I can watch all of Buffy, like the TV series of Buffy, like multiple times. I can watch the whole of Doctor Who multiple times over type thing, and be quite happy in what I watch type thing. But there's some TV that it's just like, why are we still just fix the fucking problem? Like, find somewhere to just settle down, be happy, and live. Yeah, which is quite insane. Cause I always enjoyed. I don't know which Terminator it is. The Terminator where the T-800 ends up just like living with a family and farming on like some rural property somewhere, and then gets. I don't know which one it is. It's one of the more recent ones. But yeah, I always remember being fascinated, going, how many Terminators that are just like, just like being a stay-at-home dad, and just being fucking happy with their fucking life, that have just like come back, broken their programming, gone like, fuck this, I'm not doing what the fuck Skynet says. This is all fucked. Like, everything in the future is fucked, and I could just exist and happily go work as a construction worker, or happily do, use all my computing power to just not fuck with everyone type thing, and not bring about the end of the world type thing. There's a great little interlude in one of the later Terminator films. I don't know my Terminator films well enough.
I think the reason they don't do it is because it doesn't have a great deal of dramatic bite.
No, and I suppose the dramatic part of it was then him being pulled out of that situation, and then being taken by Sarah Connor, and then having to go on like fight the fucking Skynet again.
I
would say it's a good bit of fucking media in terms of like there are parts of it that are obviously contrived, but Terminator is one of those things that needs watching.
Yeah.
Even if you just go 1, 2.
I do like the a much more ordinary people doing shit in sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Farscape had a little bit of that, but he was still an astronaut. It wasn't like an ordinary spod plucked out of the world by a wormhole.
Plucked out of the world, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the whole basis of I mean, even going to like Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon is he's the son of a professor at university who is like on the varsity football team as well as being an A grade student type thing. Like no one who ever gets dragged into these things, have spacesuit will travel. His dad works as he's a high up engineer type thing,
but
and they're very, very well off.
The thing is his adventure is predicated on the fact that he's able to think outside the box because that's his family home environment.
Yeah.
They are kind of skint most of the time because his dad doesn't want to work for the government all that often. His dad doesn't buy him the spacesuit. His dad nudges him towards like self-actualization, which is very big in Heinlein's youth.
Which it's very big in the whole Heinlein thing. Yeah. I could make this happen for you type thing, or you could get off grass and do it yourself.
So
and there's something for doing it for yourself.
There's a lot of that.
There is something to be. Yeah, that is the necessity of all Heinlein juvenile novels. Is realizing is him informing the young people that hey, you have the opportunity, you can go and do this for yourself. It'll be way more fun, and you'll have way more of an adventure if you go and do this for yourself. I do not despair for the future because of children, but I do think there is something of that missing for younger people. I do think there is an awful lot of young people who do miss out on the opportunities that I had just in being left the fuck alone. And like, as tormentative and horrible as my fucking childhood was, I was for the large point for the most part left the fuck alone to just get the fuck on with things and expected to just sort of like, appear for dinners. And I think that my generation was probably the last in Australia that was allowed to do that. It certainly wasn't acceptable 10 years later for those kids to do the same thing. They were much more micromanaged. They were much more fucking when Gen Xers then started having kids, there was something seriously wrong with in terms of like, that these kids weren't just left to get on. Conversely though, of course, like, you have something like I can point to a bit of media that does it well. It's based out of it's called the film is called Puberty Blues. It was written. It's the basis of it is a book that was written. It was called Puberty Blues. But the basis of that, as a thing, was writing that was done in an Australian newspaper that was called The Tales of the Salami Sisters, and it's about two young 13, 14-year-olds up until they were about 16, I think it is, talking about the 1970s Australia and just how fucked it was. Be warned if you go and watch Puberty Blues. They remade it recently type thing, and I don't think they did a very good job of it. I haven't seen it, but I don't think it passes up to what I don't think the reviewers thought it was where it should have been. But the 1970s version, 1980s production, maybe talking about the 1970s, is a fucking hard watching place. Just for not safe for work warning. Be warned and have your brains turned on to I might not want to watch this at this time. But it does show the converse of that of just children being basically ignored by what the fuck was by their parents type thing. But that's the notion of being raised by the lead-eating generation, isn't it, type thing. The lead-eating generation have destroyed the planet, done fucking nothing, emancipated no one or other, and literally destroyed the basis of liberal secular democracies around the world.
Yeah,
we live in that world right now.
In my lifetime, it's been a very confusing setup.
Yeah.
I think a certain amount of information overload, which makes people aware of
getting
things,
worse,
but only on a surface level. We're back to society.
Yeah, where their only response can be some visceral, I love this, I hate this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the superficiality of the news cycle. Is I love this, I hate this, and it's
Well,
like that's not good.
I'll paraphrase a William Gibson novel for you. It's from, I want to say, Idoru, which is one of the William Gibson novels, where this guy called Colin Laney can spot nodal shifts in civilization. So, you know, like it basically sifts through loads of unrelated seeming data and then can make complex predictions based on that. Like there's sort of like a very, very complicated version of chaos theory. He can see the butterfly flap its wings.
Yep.
And the air currents that cause a tornado in Japan.
Yep.
So he can spot these things. And he works for a TV production company who try to dig up dirt on celebrities. And his boss says, I don't imagine humans as people anymore. I imagine something that's a pale grey, covered in eyes about the size of a baby hippo. And the only way it can express its rage is by changing channels on 2,000 channels of satellite TV.
Of satellite TV, yeah.
You know, living in a double-wide trailer, just not moving ever, just eating Cheetos and watching television. And the problem with having so much information, but without the randomized focus to go after the bits you're interested in. If you were trying to soak in what was going on every day, and you maybe weren't all that curious, you might believe some of the shit politicians try and say. As if it's the truth. You don't have time to fact check it. I mean, the great thing, or
even make a moral judge. Like there's so much news that you can't even make a moral judgment about what's going on. You can't even make up your own mind about how you feel about this thing, and then say that was right, that was wrong, and then have an excuse as to like why the fuck the cave, like why the fucking dancing cave flames are fucking telling you the wrong thing. The plays got fucked up this week, type thing. To go back to an earlier allegory.
So. So it's all woven in with the society of the spectacle. I mean, it really would be. It would be lovely if there was a book that was sort of like every year, like a Pears Cyclopedia, and it's just called "It's Not Your Fault." Where it just says, "Okay, the things of the day, please, understand that this is, trans people are everywhere. They're not. It's quite rare.
They're not. They're like fucking less than 1% of the population worldwide." This is
way less than 1% of the population. But sort of like,
even if you peg it and say, it's 1% of the population, that's 1 out of 100 people you're likely to meet, might possibly sometime interact in this way, and it's a bit, you can't just give them fucking.
Like when they
can't be fucking loving and caring towards them. Did you not read Jesus
in schools?
In schools, yeah. And
it was just like, oh, that's for furries, and it was like, no, that's because of possible school shootings. Where we might be locked in a classroom for many hours. It wasn't so furries could live out their fantasies of using a litter tray. It was because there were so many school shootings. If you don't want stores of cat litter,
no, because there are so many school shootings, they haven't stopped.
Then you need to rein in the school shootings. So people will grossly manipulate stuff, and then a lot of people that just don't have time to take in anything else.
We'll get that sanitized view of bullshit.
Well, or the really horrific view that's just not true.
Yeah, well, it's sanitized, but not sanitized in a positive way. It's sanitized into a like bite-sized epilogue of. I mean, people who are interested in politics on this planet are like, it must be less than 5% of the population of people who actually pay attention regularly to what's going on in the news, type thing. Yeah, and I think you're only infected by it. It's like you're infected by it as like some kind of like weird autistic fucking superpower that like you can probably just about bear to what's the news cycle go on a daily basis. Pay attention and then disagree with people, ever type thing.
It's basically the organized religion.
I don't think most people. Yeah,
you are told this stuff from on high. Humans like hierarchies. If somebody's at the top of the hierarchy and they're telling you something, generally
you just follow
people
along
will
blindly.
Just believe it.
Yeah. I'm gonna mention 1984 here as a prelude, just because Matilda started reading it, by Orwell. For all of the problematic aspects of Orwell, it's still worth everything he ever said. Reading it, type thing. I would say Homage to Catalonia is and down out in Paris and London. Down out in Paris and London, I want to say it's the title of the book. Yeah. Those two are much better written, much more interestingly written. The Road to Wigan Pier is much more interestingly written type thing. But in terms of things you should have read, just start with 1984, start with Animal Farm, then read the dialogue on what the fuck he's talking about type thing, because it's not. It's not open and shut. It's not one way or the other way type thing. He's talking about the issues and crises he sees and then trying to express it in some way to a wider populace and audience type thing. Whereas Homage to Catalonia is him telling, his adventure in Spain during the Franco, the Civil War type thing in Spain, the Spanish Civil War, which was the right wing versus the left wing in Spain.
I've got an interesting factoid about Animal Farm that I found out only yesterday.
Go on, man. Mm-hmm.
It's the only feature film that has been directly funded by the CIA.
Isn't that fascinating?
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that fascinating?
During the Red Scare.
During the Red Scare. I mean, the Red Scare never finished, and it is continuing to this day. Although they have been rather shot in the foot by the Muppet in charge of the government right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're eventually going to find out what Vladimir Putin has over Donald Trump.
I don't necessarily. I was listening to Anthony Scaramucci, who does. I dislike his politics, but he's fascinating to listen to in a listening to who was the leader of the Branch Davidians.
Oh, David Koresh.
In the same way as listening to what David Koresh talks about the Bible, listening to Anthony Scaramucci is like listening to far right Republicans, like conservative Republicans, talking about what they find what they want to talk about. So I don't agree with anything, hardly anything he ever says. I'm just like, you're a raving loon, and nothing you ever say has got anything to do with it type thing. In the same way, I love listening to Rory Stewart talk about it, and Ian Hislop. I love listening to proper conservative, educated people talking about their politics. I'm fascinated by what they actually believe, and then breaking down the argument about what they believe and what the fuck's wrong with it type thing. That to me is far more interesting. Scaramucci talking about Trump is one of the most fascinating fucking things ever. And it's just insightful to listen to him. And he doesn't get it right. They never do type thing. But it's fascinating to listen to him talking about how Donald Trump is fucking it up for everyone type thing, and what the fuck is going on within the US politics service. But I mean, the biggest thing for me in the last 5-6 weeks, and I think it's week 6 now, is that I'm still astounded that the CIA hasn't gone and bullied Trump into saying, you think you're going to cut our fucking programs to USAID? USAID is never going to get defunded, you fucking muppet. This is the National Center for Endowment of Democracy level of shit. This is CIA black funding, done out in the open with all the shit we're allowed to do. You don't shut this down, you fucking you're not allowed. No one is allowed to shut this shit down. This is to cut the head off the serpent of America being a fucking conservative right-wing punditry's wet dream. I don't know how the fuck he was allowed. I mean, I know how, because he just fucking went and did it. But the fact that the CIA and the FBI have actually allowed him to go and process things without just poisoning his hamburger and making him shit himself out and have a heart attack on the fucking toilet in Mar-a-Lago. I'm fucking astounded they've allowed him to do it.
Well, it hasn't hurt enough wealthy people yet.
No. I'm not even talking about the wealthy people. I'm saying the representatives of. I dislike using the word democracy because it's not a real democracy. Liberal Western democracy, pseudo fucking shit, right? The Western dream. The Western dreams, foot soldiers being the CIA, the FBI, NSA, da. That's where all those people get churned into. If you believe this shit, that's where you go into. It's if you believe in. I can give you the other reference you would have is Kim Philby, right? They came out of Cambridge and Oxford type thing, but they went into MI5, MI6, into the Foreign Affairs Department of the British stuff. If you believed in this thing, and then Philby loses his mind and fucks off type thing off to Russia, but if you believed in the state of what the US, what the UK were, you went into MI5, MI6, the Foreign Department, the government, the civil service, You believe it, therefore you're not being revolutionary by doing that thing, right? In the same way that the anti-revolutionary of the US is going to end up serving it NSA, the CIA, FBI, somewhere like, that's where people go. But those people have been caught somehow blindsided by Trump doing what the fuck he's doing in the nature of capitalism, but that's not even really where capitalism sits right now. Like, unfettered destruction of the government is not what capitalism is about. Capitalism is protected by the state. This is not rocket science, and it's also not a politics show. But it's just, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Scar and Richie is worth a hearty listen to. He does a twice weekly podcast with a lady named Katie Kay, who is a famous British-born, now living in America, British BBC, ex-BBC reporter, and they're worth listening to.
Well, I mean, it is a media event in and of itself. So, there are political sources that I quite enjoy.
Yeah.
We've talked about permaculture.
But then I have all the people I listen to because I don't enjoy them as well. I'm just going to grab a book because it's over there. Oh, fuck, I'm stuck. Hang on.
Well, it's like The Rest is Politics. That's a very good channel.
Yeah, exactly. The Rest of Politics is well worth listening to. I mean, I think I've mentioned it before. I know I mentioned to you. I listened to. I mean, I disagree with everything Alistair Campbell ever fucking did in Parliament. I think I think the Blairites were a bunch of fucking wankers. I would have quite happily, taken Blair out the back of the porta potty and beat the shit out of him and then stuffed him in the porta potty type thing. I think he was a wanker. I think he did an insufferable, unknowing amount of damage to the UK in terms of what the fuck Blair did, with Alistair behind him type thing as what do you call it? Treasurer. That's what it's called. Chancellor in the UK, Treasurer in Australia. I think that they did. I think they did a lot of shit wrong. But it's also very, very interesting to listen to. Here's someone on the left, according to the bio type thing, and it's like, that's not my fucking left. That's not. The Labour Party doesn't represent the working classes anymore. This is why there's a fucking issue with what's going on type thing. But yeah. Alas, I got to bring up this book because I've been reading it for university. It's a Kim Stanley Robinson book. It's called The Ministry for the Future. Everything written by Kim Stanley Robinson is worth reading. There are things that stand out. There's certain stuff of his that stands out better, and I think this one, to my mind, I'm only that far through it because I've been reading it for university and I haven't been reading it fast enough really, because I've been reading 400 other things at the same time. But yeah, read anything you can find for free by Kim Stanley Robinson. But Ministry of the Future, I think it stands out. I think the hook from the start is just absolutely fascinating. The book starts off being set as a US aid worker is in India, and India undergoes a wet bulb moment. The monsoon hasn't hit. A wet bulb moment, for anyone who doesn't know, because I had to explain this in the week. Wet bulb moment is where the temperature is too high, the humidity is too high. You can't basically sweat, which means you can't internally bring down your internal core temperature, which means you keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter, no matter what you do, type thing. And then the only way you can solve that problem is by going somewhere like colder, underground. You could go somewhere colder, or you could go sit on an air conditioning unit. The problem, of course, being is the average person doesn't have access to anywhere that's underground where it's cooler than what a human being wants it to be, right? Which is not that deep, but anyway, we'll progress. We'll get there eventually with my topic for this week. The AC units all get turned off because there's actually rolling blackouts across the whole of India. So millions of people die in India, and it's one of the first big moments of catastrophe, of worldwide catastrophe, is just the death of millions of people, across India type thing, and what the fuck happens type thing. And that's where the book starts, and then it's what goes on from there and what happens from there type thing. And so far, I mean, Kim Stanley Robinson can write, but I think it's one of his best books that I've read so far by his. Other shout outs: the Pacific Coast trilogy. They're all quite short. They could all be in one book, but they're not. That was absolutely brilliant. The Mars trilogy is absolutely wonderful. And Antarctica is absolutely wonderful. If you want something completely that isn't ecologically based but is still very, very good, The Years of Rice and Salt is also a wonderfully written book. It's all about the idea of what would happen if the Black Plague wiped out everyone in Europe, and then everyone else in Europe, and so everyone else across the Eurasian continent then basically took over from Western Europeans taking over with their shipping and what the fuck went on type thing. The Years of Rice and Salt is very, very interesting, parallel history type thing, parallel future history. But yeah, the Ministry of the Future is it's literally like I remember listening to articles and presentations by the guys who were arrested from the Earth Liberation Front and the Animal Liberation Front in America in the late 90s, early 2000s, I want to say. There was a bunch of them locked up under anti-terrorism laws, and listening to them talk about the way in which listening to the guys from ELF and ALF talk about what the fuck they did and how the fuck it occurred and whether it was right, whether it was wrong, da da da. It's like Kim Stanley Robinson's channeling those people in terms of what the fuck has to actually occur and change for us to not just all be fucking, dead inside of a decade. Yeah. But no, good book. Well worth reading.
Yeah. It is. It's just. It's like that thing where people say it's easier to imagine the end of the world as a zombie apocalypse than it is for them to imagine the end of capitalism.
Yeah, it's easier. Yeah, it's easier to understand. It's easier to see the end of the world than to decry capitalism.
Because the people that can see it are obviously blessed with a certain amount of imagination.
Yeah,
and that's not universally distributed at the same rate.
Let's be honest. Everyone who ever fucking understood anything about fucking climate change was basically on the spectrum, and everyone who hasn't got a fucking clue is not on the spectrum. So you have on average about 25% of the population who are on the spectrum, even though they haven't declared it. Going, you're all fucking this up for everyone type thing. Stop fucking it up for everyone.
You're all
Can you not have some
gloom.
compassion?
Have some chips.
Can you not have some fucking compassion? And the rest of the world's going, what do you mean I can't fucking just eat whatever the fuck I feel like it?
But the weird thing is, if you lived a less impactful life, and it was possible to do that without being middle class, like it was a working class ability, right, here is your eco-friendly house. Awesome.
Yeah.
Here is your staples of food that you need, that is a well-balanced diet for who you are. There you go. So you're not going to get sick very often, so that'll alleviate a lot of pressure off, medical services and things. You can be as educated as you want because it's cheap as dirt to educate people now. Away you go. You can live your low impact life and we won't fucking hassle you. That's not a visualizable thing. When anybody if somebody wants to attack that, it's all like, well, you won't be able to have a car.
Yeah,
it's not. You shouldn't need a car. It's you won't be able to have a car, and then people think, "Oh, how am I going to get to work?" It's like, well, you wouldn't need to. It's like,
why the fuck are you going to work for?
For some reason, there's a big backlash against 15-minute cities, where you should be able to get to everything you need within a 15-minute walk. And it's like, but I like to drive. I can't walk very far. It's not about you fucking idiot. It's about creating a system where excess waste just doesn't happen because things have been designed right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. People that want to attack it just need to go for you can just tell a lie and push someone's fear response.
Yeah. Going back to
like
the
a religion would far rather, especially like Christianity, dominate the thought processes of its parishioners.
Oh, especially the Calvinist rhetoric, which is currently holding over the whole of the American public. Like the weird thing I worked out not that long ago. It was after I finished uni and then started uni again type thing. But I had this fundamental insight going and reading a bit of theology type thing and trying to work out what the fuck was going on. I worked out that America is a country under Calvinism. It's not a country under Christianity in any sense of the form. America. The whole neoliberal agenda is just using Calvinism to control people. And Calvinism is like the worst bit of fucking theological doctrine there ever fucking was.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, how the fuck did a Calvinist ever win a fucking argument? It's the worst fucking bit of fucking religious scope ever. We could talk about this for hours anyway. We've got other things to talk about. But it's just fucking bizarre, and there are. I'm going to reference. I was listening to TikTok. I went off to bed last night early, and I spent I jumped down to TikTok for 10 minutes to just have a fucking listen to TikTok for 10 minutes. So I love having a little bit of a TikTok time randomly, and someone was talking about the fact that was stop. Their argument was, and it was, it's a 5-minute TikTok, like, the absolute sort of limit you can have. Their argument was stop buying homes. And their argument for stop buying homes was because no home that you can buy is worth you buying the home. Go and buy land and then go and build, and sometimes they're called hob houses, sometimes they're called Wattle and Daub, depending on where you are. Sometimes they're called Adobe or Adobe, depending on where you are in the world. You fucking Google any of those terms. Mud brick is another term used. There's many other ways of doing the same thing. Basically, it's an earth structure building something. The reason why you want one of these is basically because they fucking work, and they don't need external power sources for heating or cooling if they're designed right. They don't need lots of other bits and pieces. You can still have a fireplace and you can still turn it on for the 3 fucking nights of the year when it's actually fucking cold in an Adobe house. I'm going to use the word Adobe because that's the way I was taught to fucking pronounce it. I don't care. It's like the word cachet. Shut the fuck up. I speak Australian. You all don't speak the same language I do. So this lady's argument was go and get yourself a block of land, which is then therefore cheaper, and build yourself an Adobe home. And the way in which you do that is by forming community. So collectivizing the notion of making those houses, because those houses can only be made by
bloody communist.
God forbid. So, form commune, make things happen, as part of that cycle type thing, getting people interested. That's the only way I've ever built houses is in community. So I built a couple of straw bale houses now, and done a bit of earth building on the side of those straw bale houses, and that's always been as part of a community, part of permaculture organizations or wider bits and pieces like that. And there's plenty of models that work that way. And the argument goes well, once you have that, then how much power do you actually need? There was another bit of research that came out. I think it came from Ministry of the Future. Talking about some people back in the 80s, but I could have that around the wrong way, so I apologize if I got that wrong and I'm misremembering, because I've been reading so much fucking ecological, history of ecology stuff recently. It's been doing my head in. I can't get my thoughts straight. But it was talking about a group. I think they were in Switzerland, but it might have been in Sweden, somewhere up in Europe, and they basically worked out to give everyone a fair amount of power. How much power do you need? How much power can you give everyone type of thing, and what sort of life does that lead to type thing? Just using, giving everyone access, everyone across the world access to power. What does that look like, and what does your life what does your life end up looking like type thing?
Yeah.
And it's actually the answer is quite pleasant. If you actually just did let's build everyone a sustainable home out of earth, right? And then let's give everyone solar panels on their roof. Right, and we have to have people working making solar panels to do that thing, right? But let's give them the reward and let's give them the reward and the medal, let's say, and the support for doing that hard job that actually has to be done, right? And let's go and do that thing. Yeah, let's go and get the people who are doing the research in the salt thorium reactors, and let's give them all the fucking resources we can have.
National service, so you do it for a very
national service. We can talk about this endlessly, type thing. Yeah, but let's go and do it. And then what does that then look like as an organization? And the problem is that organization then decouples itself very, very quickly from capitalism, and the people in charge of capitalism will not allow that to happen. They will not allow that to happen, because then all of a sudden they can't eat their green money anymore, and they're not in charge, because everyone has a house. And if they can't take your house off you, if they can't put you out onto the street because you don't have a job, if they can't destroy your fucking livelihood because you're sick or you're disabled or you're injured or anything else happens to you type thing, or you just want to fucking retire, or you just want to go to spend your fucking life studying fucking weird bits of English literature as a fucking thing, as a form of therapy against to the world, they can't control you, and that is their psychopathic, weird fucking mental disorder they fucking have. But the solution is all those people are broken, and they need to go to the special place with the special doctors who can deal with those people and give them loving kindness. So hopefully we don't have any more people like that, because they are fundamentally broken. That's the compassion of communism, is saying you can't behave yourself in a commune. You either need to leave the commune, or you need to subject yourself to admitting the fact that you are broken.
Yeah.
The story, if you want the right wing punditry, I'm going to give that as a byline. If you want the right wing punditry version of that fucking argument, go and read Coventry by Heinlein. So if you're going to come at me as saying you filthy fucking communist, what the fuck are you talking about? Go and read Heinlein's, which most right wing pundits would say he's one of ours. Go and read fucking Coventry. and then come back and have a conversation with me. And you won't. I know you won't. This is not going to fucking happen. No one's going off to the fucking gulag, right? Yeah. King Island will be a lovely fucking place for everyone to go and visit to when they need to go on go visit the special psychologists who deal with the problems of like fucking all these things going wrong, and you can't agree to be a fucking sane human being on the planet Earth, type thing. Yeah. Like Coventry will exist as a place. You will go there and you will go and see your doctor, and the doctor will go and sort you out, type thing. And it might involve a bit of an adventure, and you might have to go through the MacGuffin of the time for yourself. But eventually you'll realize that actually, hang on a second, being kind and nice to everyone and not fucking up with everyone else's fucking existence is probably a good thing. And maybe I should just find the thing I'm interested in and then go and do that, because it's well worth doing. And all the bullshit jobs don't need to keep going around so I can employ more fucking people. Yeah. I mentioned lots of things, and I didn't write down any of them as I was going along. So I apologize for the patchiness of my fucking show notes this week.
Well, yeah, mine too.
Yeah,
but I've been dicking about with stuff. I've watched a lot of TV, but nothing really new, and we've already done Star Trek. I watched quite a lot of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, just a minor correction. David Koresh was not the leader of the Seventh-day Adventists. He was a Seventh-day Adventist preacher. He was the leader of the commune at Waco, but not.
He was the leader of the
Branch
Davidians at Waco. Sorry, yes. The only reason why it came up as a reference is if you go back and listen, for anyone if anyone finds this in the future and like, who the fuck are these two old people, right? If you go back and listen to Patrolling with Sean Kennedy, which is on YouTube, part of the way through, he talks about listening to the opposition. So he actually had a bunch of tapes that he was sent. He got hold of a bunch of DVDs or tapes or something from David Koresh, and he's listening to the theology of David Koresh and saying, like, why the fuck is this wrong, and how the fuck is this going on, but what the fuck is this guy talking about? He's trying to understand the opposition by listening to their words and then trying to decipher the message of what's going on, type thing. That is where the reference came from. Yes, don't go around following mad culty fucking NXIVM level people. They're all fucking bizarrely, off to Coventry they go because they're really fucking broken. They want to fucking do that sort of thing.
Would you like an interesting?
There's a great talking about NXIVM. Just a bit. Not talking about NXIVM. There's a great. There was a great breakdown of NXIVM, the NXIVM cult. I'll have to find it. But the NXIVM cult. There was a great fucking. There was a great fucking debrief on what the fuck NXIVM had done, and people don't realize that this stuff still like NXIVM happened like. They've only just they just arrested the guy and threw him in fucking jail, type thing, a couple 5 years ago or something like that. It was still going on so recently, type thing. David Koresh is what, the 60s and 70s, and then he gets arrested in 80. Waco happened in what, 88, 90, somewhere there.
I don't know.
Waco was certainly I'm pretty sure Waco was before 9/11. Must have been.
Yes.
I'm sure it predates the aughts. Type thing. Yeah.
Would you like to know who the richest religions on earth are?
Mormons are very, very rich.
The Catholics,
for a fact.
if you count them as a planet-wide religion,
they're very, very rich.
Is tagged in Wikipedia as incalculable.
Yeah, because they own so much. You can't know how much the Catholic Church owns, which is a problem.
But if you've got to put a number on it, where we actually know, it is the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with $265 billion worth of assets.
Yeah.
So not even as much as Elon Musk. Theoretically.
No. Did I mention? Do you remember if I mentioned last? I know I spoke to you about it. Did I mention the lady who does she did the talk about preparedness and the Mormons? Did I mention that last week on the show?
I've been watching hers. I don't know if it's as a result of you, but she left the Mormons and she's basically doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people who now have left the Mormons, and then they've all basically gone onto social media and started talking about what the Mormons are and why the Mormons are and what's going on, type thing, and where the fuck it all came from, type thing. There's a bunch of people, but there was there was the Mormons are a fascinating. Knowing better, if you want to understand where the Mormons, where religion in America has come from, knowing better. If you go and watch all of the knowing better religion things, they're all very, very well done. I think he's issued corrections anytime he's fucked it up.
Yeah.
Historically, he's gone back and corrected it, type thing. But he does go into the notion of Calvinist exceptionism under the banner of Christianity, and then the cults that formed out of it that then became religious organizations out of religious exceptionalism under a Calvinist doctrine of Protestantism type thing, because the whole thing is like fucking bizarre, you know. Yeah, yeah, they're all fucking bizarre. They're all fucking bizarre. I have a question for you, Zach, and I'm gonna promise this as we go into our last sort of like half an hour, because I'm interested in your thoughts on this topic. I was trying to think of things to say because I've run out of like obvious shit that I hadn't backdated back to earlier things. So, you've read the Steampunk Guide to the Apocalypse, have you not?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, and maybe I should have pegged this by asking you to read it again, right? I came up with this thing of things that I want, right? So forms of things that I want, right? So I was thinking about all the things we've talked about for the last, we're up to like stream 6, but it's actually the 7th stream. But let's say like, you know, there's a half dozen of them type thing we've done previously type thing, right? And I was like, of all the things we've talked about, what are the things that you want in media? Like not necessarily in film, but I was more thinking in book form in terms of references, media sources, things that should occur, things that we want to happen type thing. So I probably this is as I wanted more properly illustrated diagram trade and skills books. I haven't seen anything about I haven't really seen a really good blacksmithing, stonemasonry, carpentry, machine design. It's like how do you make a lathe and an EDM machine, right? At that's both ends of machining, right? A lathe is like the first tool you want to make in a machine thing, and you can make a lathe. They're not that hard to make, right? You can make one out of wood, and you can make it human powered, all the way to the other end of machining, which is like an EDM, an electro discharge machine. But how do you make both of those things? And where is the documentation for both of those things and every step in between? Right? Where is that thing from first principles all the way through documenting it, open source, plans, illustrations, the video series, the community build, the illustrations of what's going on, and then the cyclical development of the new of the best version of those things. So in exactly the same way that say you can say with I'm going to get his name wrong. I want to say it was a Bauer, who was the lecturer who came up with the initial 3D printer at Bath University, and then he went on, and then that became an open source project, and now it's become a commercial project. But now people are making more and more elaborate 3D printers, and those things basically you can pull down a document off the web, go to the bolts and parts store, buy those things, and then make a 3D printer, and then you can basically diagnose and correct that thing. That's the one bit of that thing that's happened for. The same thing hasn't happened for lathes. It hasn't happened for all the other steps along the way of other skill sets, carpentry skill set, blacksmithing skill sets, etc., etc., etc.
It's been tried a bunch of times with cars.
Yeah.
Most notably something like a Land Rover. But there was a project back in the 70s called Africar, where they tried to build something way, way more simple than a Land Rover. That was designed to make use of all sorts of terrain, including unused train tracks and shit like that. Now, the only place where such a thing might exist was in the imagination of Isaac Asimov with the Foundation.
For sure.
What they did is they went, okay, there's a little bit in the TV series where there's like a little conclave of students, and they're
talking about
this is a plough. Now, this is the most successful version of the plough, so we'll preserve that. This is the one that really works with the least amount of metal and the least amount of skills. As opposed to its level of effectiveness. Sort of like the Chinese wheelbarrow. Right, this is goods transportation with no horses, no animals, purely human powered and limited resources. But once you have the idea in your head,
you can then
just build one out of whatever materials that you've got to hand. Like you could build a Chinese wheelbarrow just out of bamboo, were you so motivated. You could build it out of steel, you could build it out of wood. You know, it would take you a while, but once you've done that, it's one of those inventions that basically repays your investment however you have to make it.
Yeah, you can look at other bits and pieces. So, like a lathe does the same thing. The first lathes are pole lays that are basically like, a fucking ash pole that is then got a bit of string on it that then spins around the thing and you cut the bit of wood out type thing. That then evolves into being a metal cutting machine, which then evolves into being a threading machine, because the French, if anyone hasn't seen, there's a great video about the French created what a French inventor created the first metal cutting lathe that had a thread cut on it, which meant that it was universalized. Then all of a sudden you get card readers that basically like go along a piece of go along the previously formed one, and that makes multiples of the same thing without you having to stand there and do it. You have to stand there and fucking guard the machine so it doesn't kill itself. But that's and then all of a sudden, very, very quickly in the 1950s, you get CNC programming, which is where my fucking brain goes nutso because I fucking did it for long enough. And then you have computer attached to lathe spitting out the same part and measuring the fact that the runout's wrong and how the fuck do you change this type thing on every single part, and then you're correcting the part as it goes along. So every part is basically fucking as near as fucking perfect as you can get it type thing.
Pick and place machines now.
Yeah. But
board.
my thing is like, so my want out of that conversation, right? My want out of that conversation is where's the foundation level of conversation about how do we, should the worst thing ever happen, we have the seed bank of all of the seeds around the world there's multiple of them. There's one up in Norway type thing, right? We have the seed bank of those things. So where's the same foundation level discussion? Where's the book published right now? Where's the treatise on, this is where you take blacksmithing from first principles. And I'm not talking about blacksmithing from from the New Age of the Anvil type level or Weigers. I can't remember. Weiger. Maybe it's Weiger because he's German. Veygers. Might be Weiger. Weiger's machine design type thing. I want from first principles, like you can find iron in multiple sources around the world. How do you then take the iron? Like we know how it doesn't take very long to work out how you make iron out of something. You break up that fucking clod of dirt that's red that has fucking metallic in it. It's made out of hematite iron, and then you do that thing and and the end process of that is you get iron, and then you add a bit of carbon to it, and you end up with fucking steel, or you end up with other things being added to it in the pour, which means that it comes out as different versions of the same kind of steel, right? But I know that because I've studied it, and I'm not saying that I necessarily know enough about it to write the fucking book, but what I'm saying is collectively as a structure, we need. That's what I want. I want the structure that says how do we write the Wikipedia of everything, right? Yeah, that's something I see as being a need. So I posited this with like, how do we rebuild Roman and Greek levels of structures, architectural forms, concrete construction, aqueducts, etc., etc.
I know. They recently found out how to make Roman concrete.
Roman concrete. This is going back to the early conversation of the week. I went and looked up the article. It's on some. I'll put the article in the doobly doo. But it's like we have that knowledge now, right? But that knowledge isn't being taught to everyone. And you don't have the Encyclopedia Britannica of how do you build everything. So what I'm talking about is like the Encyclopedia Britannica of like you pick up the one that says how do you make metal, and it takes you through all the processes of metal, and then you pick up the one next to it and it says how do you turn the metal into a lathe, and then the one next to it says how do you turn that into like all of the tools of a carpenter, and then how do you do all of the joints of a carpenter, and how do you make carpentry work type thing, and then what are all the different avenues of carpentry from around the world, because obviously carpentry looks different depending on whether you're in Japan or China with bamboo, or whether you live in like the western boreal forests of like northern Europe or versus what you can do in Australia. All those things look different, and there's nuance in all those things, but there is the general form of you have a saw because you've made the saw, and then you can use the saw to cut out a tenon joint, or you can cut out these half a dozen joints, and these are the best joints, and therefore you can make the bookshelf, right? Or you can make a bed,
or you can cyclic. So once you've mastered making simple tools, from the materials you have to hand, you use those tools to make them more complicated tools.
Make those more complicated, exactly, right? Now, and then you understand each level. But
Plato was big into this. Because he was, the concept of the Platonic ideal being what makes a chair a chair.
A chair, yeah.
As opposed
what
to
structure is a chair?
What is the chairness, where you can look at 1,000 different chairs and say that's a chair, that's a chair, that's a chair, and your brain basically does the math and goes, that fulfills the function of a chair. He was big on that.
Yeah.
So Yeah, where, which is really, really super interesting because there's a lot of bits of like problem solving that you do. You just break it down to what's the bare minimum this thing has got to fucking do.
Yeah, yeah. How does this thing obey the rules of the share?
AI on this.
Yeah,
because if you can feed Wikipedia into an AI and suddenly it knows Wikipedia, and you can keep it updated.
Yeah, then you've got, and you can keep it updated. Then you've got then you may well have the basis for how the fuck you do it type thing. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking more like, you know, I basically wanted the yearly. I wrote it down as I wanted the updatable Encyclopedia every year. That then every year there's the new chapter in the encyclopedia. You go out and you find, like, this year we go and find the blacksmith, and you go around the blacksmith and you say, what are the essential 100 things you have to know how to make, do, functionally fucking do to be blacksmith. Like, what are the blacksmiths or blacksmithness? What are the tools and the resources and and then enough of those things that you can then take that apart and then use it in some other thing. And then the next year you go and talk to the carpenter, right? And then the next year you go and talk, and then eventually you end up talking to people like, you know, designing fucking like UAVs and gliders, right? You end up talking to like aerospace engineers explaining fucking rocket science type thing, and then you go back round in the cycle and you come back and, like, you know, the working steering committee of knowledge on this thing is updating this constantly with, like, you know, the refreshing of what's going on type thing. And there's, I mean, I'm greedy about it happening. You know, I want this to happen because I think it's one of the bulwarks against catastrophe happening. I think that we are going, like, you know, it would be very, as we've spoken about before on the show many times previously, it's very, very easy to get to like a 17th century, 16th, 17th century level of fucking what's going on, right? Like, it's not that hard to get to that level. But getting past that point, right? Getting past that point, and then getting to even the 1950s, it's like that's a whole level of like complexity that's really fucking hard to do. And they're getting past, like, getting to I heard someone call it I kind of meta modernity, but I fucking hated the term. I always call it post modernity. So the next thing after the postmodern, we're in the postmodern till now type thing, and we're just edging on to the next thing. And I like calling it the post modernity because to me post modernity was influenced so much by neoliberalism. It's been overtaken by capital. It's been overtaken by the neoliberal elite type thing, and it's been subjugated by them type thing. But I think when we go post that thing, then we go post scarcity in the same model, right? Yeah. We become post scarce, and then hopefully in the next model become post scarce. There's no longer scarcity in what we're talking about. I think that's where we have to break the dialogue of what's going on, right? Yeah. And we have to accept the fact that post scarcity means that everyone can't have a plane, but everyone has access to a plane. If that makes sense, right? Because everyone doesn't need a car, but everyone could have access to a car when they need one type thing, and that involves a bit of sharing and a bit of liberatory effect within the society type thing, but there's something else going on. But how do we get, if something goes wrong and things have gone wrong before, how do we get back to that point, right? How do we get back to now? And I think we documented in what, like week 1 or week 2, like survivors, like even from the 1970s to now, it would be nigh fucking impossible without the right people still being alive right now that you would be able to get back that level. Yeah, it would be nigh fucking impossible to get back to that fucking level for such a long time, such an evolution of thing. And it's like shortening that effect. And that's the reason why I said things that I want, this is the thing that I would want out of all the things we've talked about type thing. I want more TV series. I want more Star Trek. I want more books. I want more people to write the thing they're doing. But in terms of the thing that I want, this is what I want. I want the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy of everything and how to fucking rebuild it, right? I want the fucking book that explains how to get technology back to where we are right now. Yeah. And then where the fuck do we go? Yeah. You know, and then where can we take that from now?
What is the what do you call it? The multi-environmental way of making a bar of soap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how do you make it in a rainforest? How do you make it in a temperate
how do you make it? Yeah. And, you know, and what's the breakdown and everything else type thing, you know, and where do we go from that, I think. And, you know, and you're not going to be able to, I'm not suggesting that you would be able to store everything within this one book, but I think that the book would therefore have references to the peak understanding of what's going on. So when the new paper comes out about biochemistry, you would obviously put that in the footnote. This new idea came along. These people talked about it. It's new idea. Da da da. Here's the reference, right? And then it's freely fucking available type thing. Because one of the biggest things that does me is when fucking is when when academia hides itself behind copyright. It's the worst thing in the fucking world for the rest of the world.
Also,
and it's utter fucking bullshit.
A lot of those scientific papers don't get to the point. This is what we did. This is what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we got to show all our maths. So, this is the bit that goes on a fucking TikTok. If you do this with this, it goes there, and this happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, brilliant.
Yeah.
But for further funding for research, you've got to show the working out.
Yeah.
And it would have almost like a percentage score out of 100 of validity. It's 89% valid because we did this, and this. Further study obviously needed, but we got these results.
Yeah. But we got these results,
but
now you can go. Now we need more people to go and check our work and rework it and test the hypothesis to make sure it works everywhere and what's going on.
The super annoying thing about the Roman concrete
and science is really and the weird thing is like scientists spend proportionally more time asking for grant money than what they do doing fucking research, which is absolute fucking bullshit.
Just like politicians.
Absolute fucking bullshit.
Spend more time staring up
but
campaign donations than being politicians.
Then they doing fucking politics type thing, and you can't run a world doing that thing. That's why. That's what when I was talking earlier, and I was saying like neoliberalism has taken over the postmodern world. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Scientists should not spend more money. Like they should spend way more time teaching fucking students about what the fuck their research, why their fucking research is important, and getting more like students to do more fucking research. And then they should spend more time themselves doing fucking research, not writing the research grants. It's like we like the whole fucking monetary system is upended, arse over tit. And you're like, what the fuck is the outcome of this? Like, just stop fucking, stop pretending we don't just print money willy-nilly to do this thing. We know how the fucking banks, we know how Federal Reserve systems work. Everyone does. No one's fucking lying about it anymore type thing. And if you just basically paid people to do work as the way it suggests, as the system suggests, right? If you just paid everyone to be employed, everyone would therefore be employed, and you would never have an inflationary rise because inflation wouldn't fucking happen, right? Yeah, but capitalists can't have that because then they can't make squeens and squeens of dollars supposedly being clever when all they did was being given a loan money by their parents and then going out and buying their first company, which is just the weirdest thing ever. Yeah. So anyway, back to my point before we run out of time, because we're running out of time really quickly. Beyond my stupid pie in the sky dream of things that I want, my amazing book series of encyclopedia being but what else did you want? Like, I said I want more Star Trek, but what else? What is there anything else that you wanted at the end of? We've come to week 7 of this science experiment. It's actually, whatever week it is, something. We've been going for nearly 3 months, something. What's the thing that stood out for you? If you thought back now, just quickly on the top of your head, what do you want more of? What do you want to see more of, type thing? What do you want out of this future that we have in front of us?
Good point.
I asked a really big question then, didn't I? With no precursor. I should have bugged you about this in the week, but I've been busy.
I guess I want more tailorable media. I don't mean an echo chamber. I mean using an algorithm, but not to sell you stuff. As in, it's one of my hopes for my experiments in using artificial intelligence, particularly open source artificial intelligence, where you can tell it what you like. It has a conversation with you about why you liked it. And then it poodles off and goes, well, you really liked this. This is, but why you liked it. Like, it almost psychoanalyzes you, sort of like, so what about that book did you like? Oh, it's set in space.
And how did that make you feel?
How was the pacing? What was the protagonist like? Why did you like that? Why did you like the characters? I mean, I recently rewatched The Expanse, and I was just blown away by the costuming. And I'm noticing that more and more when I watch films and TV, you're thinking, bloody hell, the costume design on this is amazing.
Yeah,
like
someone threw some money at the costume person, and they just went. They just did the most exemplary job ever.
I mean, it's like when I was talking to you and we realised that The Expanse is mostly women.
Yeah.
If you really watch it, the major players in The Expanse, the people that end up largely calling the shots or solving things, are women.
Yeah.
And that was really amazing.
Everyone is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what you're asking for is you want to be able to assess. You want to be able to access more of those things that make your brain switch on the right way.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that you find rewarding is the thing. Yeah, you want to be able to access more of that media type thing. That all makes sense. You know, I mean, I think that's why when I come to Star Trek, I want more Star Trek, because I want more Janeway Star Trek, and I want more fucking Lower Deck Star Trek. You know, I want more Discovery Star Trek. You know, but I don't want to see Picard. I'm not interested in Picard as a character type thing.
Well, I watched that again, and the third season, predictably with Star Trek and Doctor Who, wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah.
It was certainly better than Section 31, which
Section 31.
Bollocks.
Yeah. A pile of bollocks.
That was terrible.
I haven't seen it, but I have read many reviews and spoken to you about it type thing. Yeah. But I was not. See, that was the one. It was the one female character I was not interested in. Was the Dark Time, Georgiou. Like, I wasn't interested in that character at all. Right? Like, everything else that happened in Discovery, I was super interested in. Like, I fucking loved Discovery. I thought it was a great bit of Star Trek type thing. But the bit that I was subsequently not interested in was the whole, like, you know, evil people from the mirror universe. And it's a bit like it's literally, that's the same argument that people have for. It's the same argument that's spouted out about aliens. Aliens will only come to Earth because they have run out of resources on their own planet and they have to get off the Earth and da-da-da. But if you look at us as a species, right, for us to make it off planet Earth and make it outside of our own very, very small fucking, like, you know, satellite bullshit type thing, we basically had to, we basically had to, as a species, collectively organize across the fucking planet, and at the same time have a bit of a race. Like, we had to have that competition bit going on between...
These alien invaders have organised so that they're one culture, right? And they've got off planet. How did they manage that if they've managed to destroy their own planet? If they were organised, they wouldn't have fucked up their own planet, and they wouldn't really want to go anywhere.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the whole failure of the MacGuffin type thing. What do you mean scary aliens turn up? It's like, no, all the aliens are going to turn up and be like the fucking Vulcans. You mean you've largely got it sorted out. You largely don't have a fucking problem. You've largely just like solved all the fucking problems. You're living in a post-scarcity world, and you got the fuck off planet, and you went, let's go and poke around and look at other things because shit's interesting. And why the fuck not? Because there's certain people, you know, Wyndham's knowledge, the outer urge, is the basic testament of like why the fuck any I would say neurospicy person does anything they ever do, is because they have a fucking interest and they go, well, this thing hasn't been solved yet, and that looks like fun, and I want to go and solve it. Right? It's literally like fucking autistic superpower.
It's fun as fuck to be the first person who does something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's also just as fun to go and fill in the blanks, right? Like, that's a super rewarding experience. Is going and, like, you know, working hard to fill in the blank.
The handmade remote control aircraft that somebody just built with a couple of Arduinos and switches. And was just it can't cost that much to make one of these fucking things. And it doesn't.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't.
The joy
it just works.
He got so much out of making the video about it and figuring out how to make it.
Yeah.
The fact that he made a remote control plane, that was the best value ever toy to have, is one that you build yourself.
Yeah. You build yourself. And you know, like, you look around at like nerd culture, hacker culture type thing, and it's all there. Like, the seed of what I want post scarcity is all there type thing. But I want the explainer to be that a kid being homeschooled can go and find the documentation, and then they can just start from, like, I have a makerspace in my town, I can go and get everything I want lined up, and when the machine that I get to isn't built, I can then build that machine from the shit lying around, and maybe someone might have to help me to do this thing, but that's the next level of thingo, right? That's the next level of like, you're maybe seeking out someone who understands something better than you do. I mean, I can only really talk about it in terms of engineering and machining because that's where I spent my life type thing working. Yeah. But I suppose even now, like looking at academia type thing, like you find the person who's writing the articles about the thing you're interested in, and then you go and listen to them talk because they're forever uploading fucking talks about bits and pieces, or they're forever writing more fucking documents about the thing that they're interested in, and more than likely that thing will cross over to you. I found out that my unit chair who's teaching my it's called Narratives of Fiction, is the name of the course. Narratives of Fiction is the name of the course, and he's a research academic working in literature in an Australian thing. But I was looking at he's got his timetable for the week. So like when you can bug him with like questions and now bits and pieces and da. And the weird thing is he's doing some research for a new book he's helping to write type thing, right? And it's like how like the book's title, it's by Routledge. You'll have to go on Google the title if you want to go and fucking find it. And there's another Routledge book which is in the same thing, but it's how the right wing view themselves through fiction. Right, and I've always been fascinated with it's like how do the right wing view themselves through fiction? And you go look at something like the Turner Diaries. You go look at something like one of the best films that came out last year. I think ranked. No, I was thinking that came out last year was The Order, right? Cracking fucking tale. Like cracking. It's based in reality type thing, and it's obviously a cop movie. But don't get me wrong, it's still good and interesting type thing. But well worth a watch if you haven't seen it type thing. Go check out The Order. But in terms of how do these people tell themselves a story? Where does that start from? Where does it start in the whole folk movement thing coming out of Germany, and it obviously happens elsewhere? But you could definitely point to the folk society movements within Germany and how they were building a story and building a narrative about what the fuck was going on and what was happening and right? And then where's the outcome of that thing? And then you might get to say Robert Harris with Fatherland as being a piece of. It's talking about the right wing and it's talking about it in fiction, but how is it expressing what's going on?
In glowing terms.
No, but it doesn't have to talk about the Turner Diaries. If you go and read them, are not talking about things in glowing terms, right? Yeah, Ursula. If you do the reverse of that, let's talk about the left wing, right? The piece of anarcho-communist literature, which I tell every anarcho-communist I ever meet who says, "What do I read first?" I say, "You go and read Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed," and then go and read it again and realize that the revolution has stalled. That book is about the revolution, how they perceive it needs to be, what needs to happen to restart the revolution because the revolution has failed, right? The idea of communism is the revolution should not be allowed to stall. We should always be revolutionary act. We should always be looking forward and moving upwards, something. Always working to a higher standard. Always trying to improve. Always trying to like fill in the gaps, type thing, right? That's the driving force of communists. Is we're all good. We can all do better. Let's all do better. Make everything better for everyone around us, type thing. Let's always try and build a better type thing. That's not necessarily, I'm not disagreeing with, that is my argument for what leftism is, right? I'm not saying anything about the right there. What I'm saying is that in exactly the same way as The Dispossessed is a book about the stalling of the revolution and everything going wrong with society, and that starts on page 1 of The Dispossessed, and Civik's time in school and what he faces in school and then what he faces at university and then what he faces trying to do the research he's trying to do and do the thing that he's trying to do type thing, the whole way through the book, all the way till the very end. When he gets back onto an Aries, and then I think it's an Aries, and then it's like we have to kickstart the revolution. This is what we have to do, and And the last little bit, which to me is the most important bit of that novel, I'm going to ruin the end of the novel. If I haven't read it at all, you should have fucking read it already. The last little bit of that is them talking about the bard of the story, and the bard has spent their whole life just following their friends around, this group of people around Civik, right, and following them around, writing down and retelling the story over and over and over again, republishing the work over and over and over again, trying to get to the truth of what's happened in a theoretical way, literally a Shakespearean character. And the Shakespearean character is writing the story and tells you the presentation of what's going on. It's not Civik's word. It's this Shakespearean character writing down what's happening around them and what they view as going outside. And then their discussion right at the end of the book is everyone around him thinking that he is delusional because he spent his life writing a book that none of them can understand, because why is he trying to tell this story that to them is just their life? But we have just witnessed through Le Guin's works the importance of telling these fucking stories.
Yeah, even a single life.
Right? Even a single life is this important, and what the fuck is going on, right? And that is what literature. That, you know, I mean, there's my argument for the whole of fucking literature and why literature is important. I already answered my first fucking assessment. Except I will fucking, if anyone wants to read it when I finally finish my work for this trimester, I will go and fucking publish it for you if you really want to fucking have a read. But that is where the importance is to me. I look at this book and go, Le Guin is poking fun and mocking us all the whole way through type thing. This is what's important type thing. Yeah, I want more books by interesting science fiction writers, because I reckon speculative fiction is where the fuck it's at. I want there to be more fucking
from
shit written down.
Constraints of what is.
Yeah.
Because it you know, the universal constant being change, and it allows you to bugger about with what could be. If one small
and what could be in a positive way. We can all look at it and go, wouldn't that be nice? And then we can all think about, wouldn't that be nice? And then how will my world be better like that? And then how can I adapt my circumstances now, and how can I make it better right now? Why can I make my how can I move towards that positive future? How can I take concrete little tiny steps, you know, tiny little steps in the right direction about making the world a better place, about making my own circumstances a better place, about making my own communities a better space, etc., etc., etc. And that's where I see the positivity of why literature is important, why these creative pursuits, why this media thing as a media thing, which I spent so fucking long looking at, why it's fucking important.
Yeah.
You know, why did someone write down the fucking Bible, and why did therefore a bunch of fucking rabbis spend their whole fucking life documenting the arguments they were having about the rabbinical Bible, right? The Talmud. They're doing it because they're trying to lead everyone on this little merry procession of how do we all get better, and how do we meet everyone's fucking needs, and how do we solve all the fucking problems.
Or arguably,
and that's a positive.
It's, you know, you have to have all the arguments, so it's an effective psyop.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how you manage people.
Yeah.
This is how you get them to give you money and resources, and you don't actually have to give them anything material back.
Yeah. And then they all feel better, and then the world keeps going round, and we all and then the wheels don't fall off the Chinese wheelbarrow. The wheel doesn't fall off Chinese wheelbarrow, and we all get better Chinese wheelbarrows, and everyone gets a Chinese wheelbarrow type thing. Like, that's where the world, you know. And let's not do that let's not steer our cart off the Roman road, right? Let's all do it in a positive direction, instead of making people who have indoor jobs and no heavy lifting have more fucking resources than everyone else. You know, yeah. I posit that as being a positive future for anyone listening in the future.
Excellent.
It's not going. My science experiment is not going well with Donald Trump in charge of America, but also it is going very, very well because Donald Trump is in charge of America, and a lot of people seem to be searching around, going, "What the fuck do I do now?" You know, and looking for fucking interesting novel ideas.
Well, the politics thing is definitely for the after show. You're welcome to join us in the Rangers chat, and I'm going to stop the stream now. But yeah, that was a good one. That.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
See you all next week. Hopefully,
next time.
Sleep in. Bye.
All right.